Hello, welcome to Nevada Trails. I'm your host, Adam Heggen, and joining me today is Laurie Harden of Soaring NV. Laurie, I'm glad you could make it and take the time out to see us today.
Thanks, Adam.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you guys do?
Well, Soaring NV, we opened May 1st at the Minden Tahoe Airport, and we've just decided to try to re-energize soaring in Minden, which is one of the best places in the world for the sport. And we do rides, basic instruction, and we specialize in cross-country.
And by soaring, we're talking about gliders. These guys are glider nuts. And it's easy to see why. I went out with them on a glider ride a week or two ago, and I got to tell you, I'm already hooked. Laurie got me into it, and now she's not going to be able to get rid of me. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about the gliders that you guys have?
Okay. We have our fleet consists of 5 gliders. One of them is a single-seater, which you would want to progress to when you're learning, gets you to that point. We have a fully restored vintage glider called the Schweitzer 232, the only glider manufactured in the United States, and it takes 3 passengers. The pilot sits in the front, you can take 2 people in the back. So father-son, mother-daughter, newlyweds, a great place to go take a scenic ride in that cozy glider. We have a training glider called an ASK-21. It's been manufactured for decades. It's a very stable, easy to fly, great glider to train in. That's the one you flew. So what did you think?
I loved it, actually. The glider itself only weighs about 800 pounds, so it really feels almost like a paper airplane. It's really controllable, and it floats. More or less, you don't really have to do anything, and it almost flies itself.
So you were saying that the tow was sort of full of wonder for you.
Yeah, I was the most nervous during the tow.
Okay, well, first of all, that little tow plane is a retired Piper Pawnee crop duster. That little tow plane is a powerful plane. It's almost all engine. So there's a lot of power there. The glider, as you experienced, the glider actually leaves the runway before the tow plane. For a lot of pilots, that particular portion of flying the glider is one of the hardest things to learn. Because you don't just sit back there and get dragged up into the air. You actually need to fly the glider behind the tow plane. So you need to keep it down a little bit and take off because it just wants to pop right up off the ground. And you need to keep the glider within a certain, there's a range, but within a certain position behind the tow plane in order to make the tow pilot happy towing you. Especially for some power pilots, I've heard, I'm not an instructor, but what my instructors tell me is that sometimes power pilots who are transitioning to a glider license actually find that tow the hardest thing to learn.
Well, it's got to be tough on the power pilot. The guy driving the crop duster, the Piper. What would happen if the person in the glider did nothing at all?
That's a good question. I don't know what would happen. I mean, I know
hopefully it never will happen.
Initially, the glider, as I said, would pop up off the ground, and you don't want to get too high because you may pull the tail of the tow plane up, which is not a good position for the tow plane to fly.
Especially during takeoff.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you did nothing. I mean, you need to keep the glider's wings level because, of course, if you drop a wing, the glider's going to want to turn.
Right.
So you want to stay straight. Gosh, Adam, I didn't think you were going to ask me any hard questions.
Well, I apologize. I really do.
Well, I don't think we're going to try that. But
yeah, I'm definitely not going to.
No, I think I'll ask my more experienced instructors what would happen if you just did nothing. The tow plane would probably disconnect you. And they can do that. They can pull the rope from their end, and then you're on their own. You're on your own.
I got to pull the rope and release the glider, and I got to say that was one of the funnest parts of the ride.
And did you feel that? I mean, for all the glider experience I have, there's that momentary where you're not being towed, you're on your own, and you just get that little float.
A little roller coaster float.
See, there's that smile again for you.
Well, I got taken for the ride of my life because not only can you go on a little nice and cozy and quiet, and it is really quiet, glider ride, you can also do aerobatic maneuvers. And Jeffrey, their pilot, took me for more or less a roller coaster. We did 3 loops back to back and then a couple of wing overs, which I had no idea you could even do in a glider. To tell you the truth, it kind of surprised me. I know they have competitions, and I know one of the things you're trying to do is revitalize soaring in this area because it's one of the best areas in the world for that. Here in New Zealand, a couple other places. You were telling me about the guy that took off from here and landed in Colorado?
There's a local pilot. His name's Gordon Betker. He's actually a professional pilot. He holds the distance record out of Minden, which is just over 1,300 miles. That's one takeoff and staying in thermals and wave conditions to stay in the air for that amount of time. Another time, this wasn't his distance record, but I think it's the most dramatic, is that he took off from Minden and landed in Colorado Springs, or it might have been Steamboat Springs. It was one of those springs places in Colorado. It was really far away.
They're close enough to each other that qualifies as a really long distance.
But I wanted to tell you about our 2 other airplanes also before we get off the airplane. What are your airplane? What kind of airplanes do you have?
Okay.
We have 2 high-performance 2-seater cross-country airplanes that we use for cross-country training. And we regularly take typically an experienced pilot who wants to further their cross-country training, and we'll take them up for 3 to 5 hours in one flight and take them down the Whites, down to Mammoth, and back again in a loop one day.
That's intense. We got to fly over Tahoe, and I didn't know we could stay up over the mountains for as long as we did, and I was only up there for about an hour. To go down all the way down to Mammoth and back, that's got to be a great ride.
Yeah, well, that's challenging. You find thermals usually, and you have to circle in thermals, which some people find a bit gut-wrenching, but you do get used to it. And it's kind of like I associate it with hopping on rocks in a stream where you want to keep your feet dry. You'll find thermals in a pattern on a hot thermally day, and you'll find a thermal, climb to the top of it, leave it, and then you'll sink, and you'll find another one. You'll climb to the top of that, and you'll just hop on around the mountains like that.
Well, tell me a little bit about the training to get rated as a pilot, the little progression that you take.
Well, it depends on where you're starting from. If you're like me, I started from nothing. I'd never flown anything before. And the rule of thumb is you'll need 1 takeoff and landing, 1 flight for every year you are old. It's probably a bad sentence, but you get what I mean. I was a slow learner. I soloed on my 81st flight, and I'm not 81. Some people learn, it really just depends on how you learn. There's no hard and fast rules like there are with power pilots where you need so many hours. It's when your instructor feels like you have the skills to fly solo, he'll send you off solo. And then before you take your check ride with the FAA, you need to pass a written test, and you need to do 10 solo takeoff and landings in a glider, and then you can go take your test. And it can be anywhere from 12 flights if you're a really good stick, to a middle-aged woman who's very timid and careful like myself, who took me 80 flights before my instructor was ready to send me off, and everything in between.
What was that before they were comfortable letting you go by yourself, or was that so you were comfortable going by yourself?
I think it's probably both.
A little bit of both.
The first question my instructor asked me was how much I weighed, and at that point, at that point, I knew that he was going to learn a lot about me during this process of learning, and I think he had a good sense for when I had the confidence to go up there on my own.
Jeffrey, when I got to fly the glider, made it extremely comfortable. He very confident in his abilities, and he should, because he's a great pilot. Everything the guy did was perfect, and he literally makes you feel like you're 5 feet off the ground, no matter if you are 5 feet off the ground or 1,500 feet off of a mountain. It was, I gotta say, it was one of the best things I've ever gotten to experience, and I wanted to thank you before we go to break, because we have to take a little break real fast, but I wanted to say thank you one more time for taking me up on that. We'll be right back here on Nevada Trails.
Hi, I'm Michael Smith for Nevada Trails. Recently I've been seeing a lot of people getting kind of depressed about being laid off from work and things like that. And my family and friends, what we've kind of done is throughout the years, we just go out and volunteer. Your favorite museum, maybe your public access station. A lot of the people who work with me are all volunteers as well as I am. And the food closet needs you, and basically just get off your duff and go out to your local theater or, like I said, public access station and give them a help and maybe learn a new craft. And you'll cheer yourselves up. And in lieu of donations, they need your help as much as you can give them, and we'd all be glad you did. Thank you very much.
Restoring the Truckee River? Many said it couldn't be done, but the Nature Conservancy took on the challenge.
This was the biggest thing we've ever done.
A year later, things look different.
We're out here to see what we can find. You can see these small little trees that are growing. These are all cottonwood seedlings. This is what we call wiregrass.
We have wetlands. That means we have frogs. We have wetlands and insects. That means we have birds. And we have the diversity of all kinds of species at all kinds of ages.
The fish habitat, since they've changed the river, created the meander here, has just improved dramatically.
We're seeing actually already a huge improvement in the number of species and the number of birds that we can find out here as bird watchers or as ornithologists.
We're glad that they're working with the tribes and restoring the river to its natural ways here.
Standing here now on a early summer evening and hearing the shorebirds and the water moving through the river, it was so different here not so long ago.
The Nature Conservancy, protecting nature, preserving life.
Welcome back to Nevada Trails. We're still talking to Laurie about soaring. I wanted to ask you a question real fast before we get to the video, Laurie. What is the definition of cross-country gliding or soaring?
Cross-country gliding is when you leave the glide ratio. Every glider has a glide ratio. So, for example, our cross countries might fly 40 to 1. So for every 40 miles of distance, now I'm screwing this up, for every mile of altitude, you can glide 40 miles.
Oh, okay.
So once you're at 50 miles away from the airport, suddenly you need to use some flying skills to get back. So you're going to need to find a thermal or some wave or some ridge lift in order to make it back to the airport. That's cross-country soaring.
Okay, so it's not just slowly letting the glider come back down to the ground.
No, because you'd miss the airport. If your glider has a 40 to 1 glide ratio and you're 50 miles away, you're going to miss the airport by 10 miles.
By 10 miles. So it's technical flying.
So it's a little more technical flying, yeah. And it's what a lot of glider pilots crave.
All right.
And it's what you're going to be doing.
Absolutely.
And then you're really going to grin.
Well, like I said before, we have a video of myself and our cameraman, Dan Miller, taking our very first glider rides. So we'll be back right after that. I'm here at the Minden Airport. I'm about to go on my first glider ride with Soaring NV right here in this blue hangar. A little scared. Gonna do a loop. I'm really scared about that, and I think he might do a couple of them. So when I get back on the ground, I'll be surprised if my face is ghost white.
A little bumpy at first. Wings come level. We're balancing on the main wheel that's right underneath me.
Right.
Glider lifts off first. Now
we're already airborne.
Yes. Wait for the tow plane to lift off. And up we go. Now at this point, if something happened, we'd land straight ahead. I'd open the spoilers, I'd come on down, we'd land straight ahead.
Right.
Now we're getting up high enough to go across the road, across the power lines. I'd land in that dirt area, that darker dirt area, and I'd just put the glider down right there. Yeah. Now we're at 200 feet. This is high enough to turn around.
200 feet is high enough to turn around?
200 feet. Most airplanes, they wouldn't do it until 700 feet. The glider doesn't lose much altitude in its turn. So we teach emergency practices where they will turn around at this altitude and go back and land. just about ready to release. That yellow knob on the left-hand side by your left knee.
Yeah.
See it?
Yeah.
I'm going to have you pull that in a moment.
Okay.
When you pull it, we're going to disconnect from that tow plane. He's going to make a left turn, we're going to make a right turn, and off we go. You'll notice we slow down quite a bit right away. You may come by and take a couple of pictures.
Okay.
The yellow knob, go ahead and give it a pull. Most people like to watch the tow plane as it goes. Go ahead. He's going to the left. That's what he does all day long.
Oh yeah, you really drop in airspeed.
The glider's more efficient at that little slower speed.
That's amazing that you can turn that fast, pass them by a few times and barely lose any altitude.
That's what we're talking about when we broke the ground. A glider can turn around about 200 feet. An airplane wouldn't even try to turn 700 feet. Roller coaster going downhill, we're going to speed up to 100 to 110. You're going to hear the sound, the nose is going to go down. You're going to see the airspeed indicator get faster. Then as we do the loop, you'll feel some G's as we pull on up and go right on over.
All right.
We're going to go from the first one to the second one. We'll probably do 3 all together and then stop on there. But on one of them, take pictures of the front and then take pictures out to the side. And if you just sort of go out your the wing, getting a little bit of the wing, that usually works the best. And again, just aim it out that direction, just do the best you can and stuff.
Alrighty.
Okay, ready? And I don't know if you want to go right because the sun on your right. You might want to go to the left wing. Okay, we're going to start picking up speed. We're going to do a loop straight on across. You're going to feel the G's. Nose goes down. We're going to pick up speed fairly quickly. There goes 50, 60, 70, 80, 90.
Wow.
Right on over. Look around. Quiet at the top. Now shoot one out the wing. There's 100. Up we go.
Oh, that's intense.
That's intense. All right.
That is awesome.
And one more. Lined up with the runway, wings level, lots of pedal action at this point. I'm steering right down the runway with the pedals. Kind of right down the center. Nose stays down until we're about 5 feet off the ground. And then I'm going to let it float so the nose actually comes back up and it floats and floats and floats and then it finally just touches the ground. Good speed, makes it maneuverable, like I said, back to the freeway explanation.
Yeah.
Down just a few feet off the ground. Floats and floats and floats and floats. Doing this a long time ago.
Adam, how was it?
I gotta say, that was probably one of the funnest things I have ever done in my life. That was awesome.
We saw you do a wing over on your approach.
Oh, dude, did you see the loops?
I saw one wing over.
Oh my god.
And how were the controls?
Surprisingly, I don't know what the word is. They weren't easy, but they didn't take much to get the glider to do what you wanted it to do. If that makes any sense.
Did you do a couple slow turns?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay.
I had to do a few turns. Not very good ones, but, you know, turn nonetheless. I gotta say, man, that was probably the funnest thing I've done in a long time.
Now we're gonna pick up speed fairly quickly. There goes 50, 60, 70, 80, 90.
Wow.
Right on over, look around. Quiet at the top. Now shoe one out the wing. There's 100. Up we go.
Oh, that's intense.
That's intense, all right.
That is awesome. Welcome back. I hope everyone enjoyed the video of my very first glider ride. I certainly did. I know it won't be my last either, and I have Laurie to thank for that. Also, for taking the time to come to see us. If anyone out there is interested in glider rides or becoming a glider pilot, they should definitely go to
Soaring NV at the Minden Tahoe Airport. Our phone number is 782-9595, or you can visit our website at soaringnv.com. And for all you Nevada Trails regulars, you see the grin on this guy's face? That's one glider ride. It's a happy thing, so come and talk to us.
Definitely will not be my last. I'm getting certified. I'm going to fly one by myself. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here on Nevada Trails.